Hello, good evening, and welcome everyone to the Curious Mind series podcast. Hi, Jega, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Vikram. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy Friday. If
And
I were to say it, happy Friday.
happy Friday to you too.
Okay, great. So, hello everyone. Welcome. Good evening, and a very warm welcome. It is indeed very warm weather in Malaysia at this point in time to the ninth episode of the Curious Mind series podcast. I am your host Vikram, and today we are going to unravel an interesting facet and an extremely upcoming trend in the training industry or the space, which is, and you guessed it right, simulation and game based learning. Now, I'm sure a lot of you got intrigued by this topic as to what is simulation, what is game based learning, and we have none other than Jagatishwaran Manoharan, as a famously known as Jega, and I'm going to call him Jega for the rest of the evening as our guest tonight. So let's put our hands together virtually to the ones who are attending to welcome Jega, who's going to have an enriching discussion with us. How are you doing, Jega, today evening? And welcome to the Serious Mind series podcast.
Right, I am very blessed and highly favored, more than I deserve. Life is really good. Today has been a very good day, and thank you very much for this to be invited into the Curious Mind series. And I hope you're doing well too, Vikram.
I'm doing well. Couldn't be more excited. It's a topic which I have kind of touched upon, from the periphery. It's a topic I have experienced a little bit, but I'm very, very, very curious to know much more about it. So I'm really glad that you're on the show, and great to start this discussion. Now, for the audience who are in this, before we kind of start off, whilst we have a detailed intro about about Jega on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend you to go and view his profile on LinkedIn as well as connect with him. He's a known personality in the training space within Malaysia. Uh, for our audience who are listening to him for the first time, Jega is the co-founder and a director of Accordia Training, as well as a team effectiveness consultant who specializes in using game-based learning and gamification for a more immersive classroom experience. Additionally, he is also a founding member of the Malaysian Simulation and Gaming Authority community, which is what I'll talk about, MASAGA, which are taking some key positive strides towards building this community and having a positive impact. In his own words and written on LinkedIn, Jega likes to be known as a thought catalyst, as a team effectiveness consultant, business simulation designer, former board member of NASAGA, and is someone who's won multiple awards, such as the top 100 most inspirational LinkedIn icons in Malaysia, as well as the best team building award a couple of times. Well, to know more about him, like I said, this is just a little brief about all the wealth of experience and expertise Jega carries. You go on LinkedIn, connect with him, and do check out his profile. So, Jega, are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much.
Perfect. Great. So, before we begin the drum roll of this inquisitive and curious questions, for the benefit of our live audience, and some of you, I'm really grateful, are following us for a while and do listen to these podcasts. Jega has no clue of what questions we are going to ask him in a live format, and his responses will be purely based on his experience, expertise, knowledge, and personality, which is what the core essence of the Curious Mind series. So Jega is just going to be floored with all the curious questions I'm going to shoot at him, and you can ask too. So for the live audience, you can just type in your questions on the comment section, and we'll be very happy to ask Jega in a live format of what it is. Okay, so let's get the ball rolling without further ado, because we do have a few curious questions to ask him. Now, Jega, can you tell us what is simulation and what is game based learning in a layman's world? What is the core definition and understanding of it? How, for a layman like me or anybody, what does it mean? What does simulation and game based learning mean?
Okay, maybe I'll start. Thank you very much for that question. Maybe I'll start with the word activities, right? Activities are any form of exercise that you would do in a classroom, which is related to learning. It could be a discussion, it could be building something, it could be placing some objects in a certain order and all, or maybe even if I give you a set of cards and say that, could you please put that in order to describe the process in a probably in a plant, or like kids in the school days, we used to give them small flashcards and ask them to put in order. Which one would you do first? You will wake up in the morning first, and then you will brush your teeth, you will shower, and then you will get dressed, and then you will have your breakfast. All this is in order. So if I give you a set of cards and ask you to place them in order, we call that as an activity, right? So what is a game thing is that if we have a competition element to that activity, then it becomes a game. So when I say a competition element, it's like, all right, I'm looking for the one who could place all this in order, the first person who can place it all in order. Now it becomes a game, right?
Game.
Because we have a game element into it, we have a competition element into it, and they are now going to race against time with one another. There is an added motivation to do something. So if you take, for example, like let's say I usually give this example of building blocks. If I give you 20 building blocks and I say that, okay, build a house, that's an activity. Now we want to find the team that can who build the house the fastest. Now it becomes a game. Now what is a simulation? Now simulation is if you try to mimic real world, either the thought process, emotion, or motor skills of the real world, and you
Mhm.
bring them into a safe space for them to try that out, then it becomes a simulation. So, for example, let's say a motor skill simulation would be like a welding simulator. So, I have seen this welding simulator that where people train how to do welding. You can't, I mean, there is a theory part on how you do welding, arc welding. You how to hold it at a particular angle, and as you move, your hand has to go
Correct.
down. Right? So there is actually process for that, and usually people learn welding by doing welding. But sometimes it's too expensive, or the space might not be there. You got to really go down to the workshop. You got to have several equipment for that. So there is a welding simulator whereby if you're off, the chart there, the monitor will show that by how many angle are you off. So you're trying to keep your hand steady within that. So you're actually building a motor skill while
Mm.
doing it. All right. So that's one motor skill. Another one could be thought process. Thought process is like, let's say, for example, I gave you the example of the building blocks. Right now, I
Mm.
put prices to the building blocks, and I give you some money, and you have to build the tallest building block at the cheapest level. So now there's a little bit of thought process going in. Where should we channel the money to and all. Now it becomes a simulation of thought process. How do you make cognitive decisions? How do you manage your money and make sure you can actually maximize from whatever cash you have. Another one is simulating emotion, like, for example, an ER room or disaster recovery. You want to simulate an environment where people are there are three accident cases over there, and
Mm.
you're supposed to attend to them, and then you have the parent of one of the victim screaming at you. How do you manage your emotion in that sense? So that is actually a simulation of an emotion simulation. So if you can actually recreate that three, either
Mm.
one or in combination, in a safe environment, and people can experience it without really experiencing the real stuff, now that's called a simulation. So I hope
Wow.
I clearly
Wow.
define all three.
That's really interesting. I think you explained it very well. But then the question which comes to mind is, this all of this simulation still happens in a training room or in a boardroom or in a closed safe environment. Is that right?
Yes, because the whole idea of a simulation is the idea of a simulation is how do you uh, recreate or how do you provide an opportunity to train on the motor skills, the thought process, and the emotion in a safe environment. The key word here is in a safe environment. So
Okay.
it's a simulation because it's a safe environment. So, for example, like an aircraft pilot. So, if you look at an aircraft simulator has all three elements inside the simulator. Number one
Okay.
is the motor skill. You should know under which condition where should your hand go for which aircraft that you are flying. You should know it by heart where the location is, and you get the spatial feel of your cockpit. And then secondly is that cognitive process. You should know under different wind conditions how much does the rudder turn, how many degrees, and how much should you throttle up, throttle down, and all. So these are very clear calculation based decisions. Then the third one is your emotion. The plane is actually diving down. And at that process, you have to keep your emotions steady so that your cognitive thinking can actually work properly over there. So, of course, if you were to put this in a real plane, they will really get the real feeling to it. But then that could be the last flight for the pilot also. So you want to put them in an environment where if they make a mistake, then they're going to have to repeat that. They're going to have to repeat that thing. The hours are not calculated or what. So therefore, it puts people in a situation where they can actually experience it and also learn from that experience itself as real as it can be.
So that's great. So the people who kind of, as training provider, as you kind of make the audience or the participants go through these real immersive experiences from a simulation perspective. Is that right?
That's right. So for in a training environment, what we are trying to do is we try to achieve. We don't do so much of motor skills because that will be technical training, but we are more towards the thinking process, the thought process, or the emotion side of it. Like for example, you're trying to negotiate your way out with another person. And why is that some negotiations don't work? Why is that some negotiations work? And also, if we can build a simulator or simulation for that to happen, people can make all the mistakes in the simulation. You can try a certain method and then you find out it's not working. So when you find out it's not working, then we go through what we call as a KOLB cycle. Okay, those who are listening, you can actually Google this out. KOLB, KOLB cycle, KOLB experiential learning cycle, and they
Mhm.
have a very clear process, and it's a very easy process. It's not rocket science, very simple process on how do you reflect on an experience. So when you look at an experience, it didn't work out or it worked out. So what happened from that? Then I'm deriving some theories, what works, what does not work, and I'm putting it into trial again to see whether it works in a simulated environment.
Nice, nice. So for the audience, if you didn't capture it again, I'll repeat it, and I'm going to Google it myself. KOLB experience, isn't that?
That's
Is
right.
that right? Is that right?
Cold cycle, yeah.
Hope cycle. Okay, okay. It's interesting. It is coming Cult cycle in the below, but it is not. It is
Cool.
KOLB. Yeah.
KOL.
Okay. Okay. Great. So moving away, I think myself and our audience kind of have understood what is simulation, the basics of it. Now, there is this a lot of word around gamification, and it's like a buzzword people talk about. And
Yeah.
then there is this thing about game-based learning. Now, my question to you is gamification and game-based learning the same? If yes, fine. If not, what is the difference between them? And if you can share and elaborate a little more on it.
Right. Okay. That's a very, very interesting question, and I'm glad that you asked the question. Okay. So
I've
for
done my
that,
study. I've done
yeah.
my study.
Right. So for that, I need to get into now defining what gamification is. Okay. So gamification is using game elements or game-like environment or game-like elements in a totally non-gaming environment. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
giving you the full definition first in a very where it sounds very academic, but then I'll give you an example and all of you will be able to understand. So in a using game element in a non-gaming environment to create better engagement and motivation for them to perform a particular task. Let's give an example.
Hmm.
Kids throw rubbish, and we tell them in class, no, rubbish should be thrown into the dustbin. And then out of convenience, they just throw it over here, throw it over there. So how do you condition them to do that? Okay, so throwing rubbish is not a game. It's not a game at all.
Fortunately,
Okay,
no.
it's one of the most boring things to do, but because it's over there and I have to go all the way. So what they started doing is that they tried doing this where there are sensors inside, and every time a rubbish goes inside it, the thing lights up and a sudden buzzing sound comes out of it. So now the kids look forward to throwing a rubbish because throwing the rubbish creates a response. And the response is like a game like environment for them. So they are actually playing a game of throwing the rubbish, but in the meantime, they are actually putting the rubbish where it should be. So another experiment that was tried out last time was how do you get people to use the stairs instead of using the escalator?
Hmm.
People tend to use the escalator. How do you make them use the stairs? So what they did was the stairs, every stairs there's a sticker there, and there is actually a sensor there. And every time you step on it, it creates music.
Right.
So what happens is that people who want to just listen to the music, they will go up there because it's, as I'm stepping in, I'm getting music, I'm getting the response, and I'm enjoying the response and all that. So what they did was a game-like environment in a totally non-gaming environment. Game element in a non-gaming environment. A non-gaming environment is climbing a staircase.
Right.
So when you create that, there is a feedback, there's a response. People tend to want to do that. I think that's the definition of gamification. Now, there is an argument between some in some quarters of people is that, or practitioners, they say that, okay, so learning is non-gaming environment. So if I play a game inside there, and therefore because I play the game and their motivation to learn is better, isn't that also called gamification?
Hmm.
Okay, all right. This is where it's always a contention, but the general understanding is if you use a game to teach something. In other words, I'm using a game as an element to teach something to someone. We don't call that gamification. We call that game-based learning because there are
Okay.
certain processes on that which is totally different.
Okay.
However, if a person goes for a classroom and
Hmm.
after the class they have some assignments to work on, and working on an assignment is really not that exciting at all.
Hmm.
But if
Hmm.
the assignment is done in a gamified thing, it's like, if you complete this, you get a badge, or you complete this, your scale goes up, and that
Correct.
shows in comparison with others in the classroom, then people end up completing the assignment. So they created a game-like environment for you to complete the assignment. The mission is to complete the assignment, which is a non-gaming environment, but a game element actually makes people want to complete that. On the other hand, a game-based learning is that I am using games for a particular lesson that I would like to deliver. So I am playing
Hmm.
in a game of snake and ladder for people to understand about positive and negative aspects of a particular situation. Let's say a customer service, for example. What works, what does not work. I wouldn't call that gamification because you're using the game itself for you to learn something. So there's always a debate, but the reason why we separate these two is so that we don't create confusion in the market, and at least we have a common language to speak on. That is, when you say gamification, it refers to a boring task We create game-like environment. Now the boring task becomes interesting. And that's a whole lot of things that you can do apart of just learning. So if you're using it for learning, you're using a game for learning, we call that game-based learning. Hope
Nice.
that is clear.
To me it is clear. I hope to the audience, and that also brings me, I think we have now, to people who are watching us live, we have now kind of got Jega warmed up. As it is quite a warm weather, but we have warmed him up with a couple of good questions, and he's kind of into the mold of answering. So if you have any specific questions, please do write on the comment section. You want to or you have a question you want to ask, or you want to comment anything. Like I've said many times before, we cannot see the audience, so we are kind of going blind, and we just see you at this point in time. Kind of, if you have any comments, if you write, that will be great. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So if you have any questions, please do ask. There you go. Somebody we know very well, and I'm going to pop him up. Daniel Gonzaga
Oh,
says, "Clear,
no.
sounds good." Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for the reassuring words and sharing with us on that one. That's great. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate the support. So now you spoke about Jega. You spoke about some of these games. You spoke about a word called snakes and ladders. You spoke about a word called blocks. You spoke about a word. So some of these things which you say, isn't the school also teaching the kids the same thing? Now, my question to you is, we have all evolved in the training space or the learning space, if I were to say, wherein there was this traditional school based learning, wherein we have kind of, it's like a classroom based. Now it has evolved over the last few years into this experiential learning, into this learning around games, gamification, whatever we call it. So we call it under this umbrella. Since when has this evolved, and this mechanism being implemented, and how has it evolved over the years? Can you kind of throw a little light on it? I know it's a long question, but basically how it has come to light and how it has evolved over the years.
Right. Okay. The idea of using games in learning has been there for a long time. If you know this game called, in Malay we call it chongka. I think in the English version is it makala, or I forgot what's the thing where they drop seeds into
uh,
that.
I
What do you
can't
call
think
it
of it,
in
but I'm
Indian?
going to ask the audience, if you know the English word for chonka, do type it in the comment section, and we would be enlightened ourselves.
Yeah, and in Tamil, I know what it's called. It's called palanguli in Tamil.
Hmm.
So it's the thing you have either use seeds or use marbles or what, and you do that. And that was actually a game of choice. In other words, it's like it's your choice. You can start whichever, and for every choice that you make, there is an outcome. So if you look at it, games were not like a new thing. Using games for learning is not a new stuff. It has been there for a long time. People use games for workout. That's how sports came about. Sports is about working out and all, having fun and all. And in the process, you're doing something physical, and you're doing something entertaining
Hmm.
with that. So if you look at modern day of using games for learning, I would probably go back to the formation of Nasaga and Isaga. And Nasaga itself is probably over 50 years old. I can't
What is,
exactly recall.
sorry to
Okay,
cut you there, what is Nasaga?
yes, right. I'm coming to that. NASAGA is the North American Simulation and Gaming Association. They have been in America, founded in America. So it covers both America and America as well as Canada. And ISAGA is the International Simulation and Gaming Association. And ISAGA itself is already about 52 years or more. All right. So for half a century, this has been around. But Nasaga, prior to it being called Nasaga, it used to be called the War Game Society or what. So games were very much like You create miniature war situations and all, and people were having fun and in playing it. But at the same time, they also realized that hey, there's a lot of thought process that's happening over here, and
Hmm.
therefore it can be actually used for learning and for other development. And also it started with that, and the thing is that along the way people found that playing games in classroom actually created a better engagement.
Okay.
So I would always give credit to my one of my gurus, Tyagi, or better known. I mean, better known as Tyagi. His full name is Sivasalam Tyagarajan, and he's actually from the U.S., formerly from India, and residing in U.S. for I don't know, well over 60, 70 years, I guess.
Mm.
So Tyagi has been one of the a prominent figure in the world of game-based learning. And what he does is that he shows very simple processes that people could use for learning. So when you talk about using games for learning, it doesn't have to be complex games. You know, sometimes people are thinking like, oh, simulation and game-based learning means we have to use certain kind of props or
Mm.
certain board games and all. Now, those are the high-end simulations. There are simulations out there which are a little high-end. You look at the board; it takes about 2 hours for you to play on it. So that's on the high-end side. But game-based learning itself is not supposed to be high-end. It is something that can be done in a very simple way. So let me just give you an example. This is a common example that I usually share whenever I'm speaking on this. Is like, let's take a ball and I'm throwing a ball to you. Let's say, for example, we are here face to face and I'm throwing a ball to you and you're
Uh,
throwing the ball back to me. Now,
yeah.
that's actually a very boring activity of throwing a ball back to one another, right? But now, let's say we create a little bit of additional process to it. I'm going to tell you, Vikram, I'm going to throw the ball and I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to throw it. I'm going to throw it to the left. I'm going to throw it to the right. You're going to attempt to catch it whichever way I go. Now, once again, it's just a game, right? It's nothing.
Mm.
It's just a, and we all play that kind of games.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's say we add a little bit of process of asking the right questions for the experience of that game. So I will ask you a question, something like this. Vikram, the first time I was just throwing the ball and you're catching the ball, how was your experience? You're going to probably say like, yeah, it was throwing, I could catch it. But then the second round, I started throwing to the left and throwing to the right. What did you have to observe differently for you to be able to catch the ball? Now you're going to have some thought process around it.
Correct.
Oh, I have to observe. I was looking into your eyes. So why is that you're looking into my eyes? Because I noticed that your eyes always went in a certain pattern whenever you threw a ball. And I was trying to study the pattern. I could predict where the ball was going. Aha, great. So now let me just take that and apply this in a real world scenario. What are the patterns out there in the marketplace that you could actually notice, that you can draw some conclusion or some form of theory as to what are the possible business scenarios that is going to happen in the next 6 months or 1 year?
Mm.
Now the entire thing is going into a totally different dimension of discussion, but the base of it was two individuals throwing a ball.
Well, yes.
Right? So
Okay.
you see how a simple game like that, if you put the right processes of asking the right question in a certain way, or what we call as facilitative process, like for example, just now the gentleman that you brought out, Daniel, he is from an association of the Malaysian Association of Facilitators, and they
He's a
have
great.
various processes. Yeah, it's a great association, great organization. I like them a lot. I really enjoy talking to them. And they have processes in place. And if you then take the process and ask the right question, now you take a boring game or a simple game or even a game that, nothing, I don't think I can learn anything from there. And you just created a very strong structure to it and it becomes such a useful tool for learning.
So, so then the question arises. Thanks for that, Jaga. Then the question arises: can any person, any individual out there, can just pick up a game and structure around it and start teaching, or is there kind of a framework around it? Do you need to kind of take kind of approvals? Is there a board? Is there an authority? How, or do you trademark it? Is there anything kind of which kind of covers this in a much more professional way?
Okay. Um, First of all, there is no authority that can tell you whether you can do something or cannot do something. Right?
Okay.
So this is where I like one of my good friend. I really respect this person a lot. Is Captain Shan. Captain Shan, who is from team coach, and he was also a member of IAC, the International Association of Coaching. And he told me something very profound one time. He said that I asked him, Captain, should I be certified to be a coach? He said, no, you don't have to be certified to be a good coach. And being certified as a coach does not guarantee that you will be a good coach.
Yes.
But certification will show you some processes that maybe some things that you're doing naturally, you could spot some ways of how to improve that natural skill that you have. It basically gives you a structure on certain do's and don'ts and how to go about it properly. But there are a lot of people out there who are coaches and they are natural coaches. So certification only puts a structure. So likewise, same thing applies to game-based learning or simulation, is that anybody can take any game and convert and make a game, make a learning tool out of it, and you can use it in your classroom. If it makes sense to you, it makes sense to the player, and you're able to draw a lesson from it, that's it. Do it. You know,
Bingo.
yeah, and there are certification programs, there are trainings for that and all, but those trainings are all there to just give you the ABC of it. Like personally, I conduct a program called Certification and Learning Game Design, and one of the worst experience I have in running that is that when people come for that, they expect after that 3 days plus 1 day is a 4 day thing, is that I will be an expert in game design. No, you will know the processes on how to design a game, but the expertise is your flying hours. You need to put it into practice. You need to try it out. So I would encourage anybody to just go ahead and try it out. You don't need to have specialized skill. If you can take any particular game and you can see some lessons from it, you can ask the right questions in a classroom, you can go ahead and use it. You can even use an existing commercial game. Just make sure you buy the original game and you play it in your classroom, and you can actually draw out some lessons from it, and there you are. You have an approach over there. You don't really need something very specialized or licensed material or whatsoever. That's just my opinion about.
Thank you. Thank you, Jega. And rightly put by Daniel. I mean, when many years back, I have undergone, I think, a game based learning, thanks to Daniel facilitating it, to be very honest. And I'm glad he says it's processes versus powerful questions. Very rightly said. Thanks, Daniel. Moving on. Again, back to the audience. If you have any specific questions, please do ask. Daniel is definitely putting up some nice keywords which are benefiting us. But if you have an inquisitive question, a curious question for Jega, please just type it out in the comment section, and we'll be more than happy to take it up. And while you do that, or while you don't do that, I will continue to ask the next bit of it. So we've now spoken about simulation. We've spoken about the essence of it. What's the history behind it? We've spoken about gamification, game-based learning. What is the difference between that? Now, for participants, for people who undergo this experience, what are the advantages to undergo this process as a methodology? What are the, I would ask you, what are the kind of top three advantages people really feel, oh, I think I benefited like this from undergoing this experience?
All right, we're talking about benefit for the learners. Yeah.
For the learners, yes. For the participants, yes.
Okay. Now, I would say it's a mandatory thing today to use game-based learning. I'm just sold out to it. Okay, so that I am biased on that area. As much as somebody is sold out to coaching, will promote coaching. Somebody is sold out to facilitation, sold out, right? But I'll give you a reason why I believe that simulation and game-based learning actually plays a very vital role. You're familiar with the four levels of learning, from unconscious incompetence, moving on to um, uh, conscious incompetence, and then you goes to conscious competence and unconscious competence, right? So for those who are not familiar with this, once again, Google it out. Just put unconscious competence, four levels, and it'll come out. Okay. So most training assumes that people already know what they don't know. So we always assume that they already know what they don't know, and therefore they attend a training program. So in the training program, we cover the theories, we cover the case studies, we show them different things, and there's a lot of discussion and all that. The challenge is this: all the discussion is happening at the head level here. It's happening
Right.
at a very intellectual level. A very emotional matter is being computed at a very cognitive level, which is nothing wrong about it. The only thing is that when the real emotional thing happen, the cognitive process goes out of the window, because the emotion hijack actually happens. But in a simulation, what happens is that when people go through the simulation, they start understanding what they do not know about what they don't know. They start realizing that, hey, you know what? Oh, yeah, I actually don't know that, you know, as opposed to I'm putting you through a program and telling you that, okay, this program is going to cover about all these particular topics. So we are assuming that they already know what they don't know. But the reality is people don't know what they don't know. Now, let me give you in a form of an example over here. You
Yes.
send a person for a leadership program,
Okay.
and
A
they
lot
go
of
for a
people
leadership
go for
program.
leadership programs. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to use leadership, because that's the simplest thing that everyone. They go for a leadership program and they sit down there, arms crossed, legs crossed, eyes crossed, everything crossed, and all that, looking at the trainer and looking at the book and trying to understand things and all that. Yeah, but in my opinion, I feel this method will not work and all that, and everyone is having intellectual conversation in a leadership program,
True.
right?
True.
So what is happening over there is that they think they know what they don't know, and therefore they want to know those things that they feel that might take them to the next level. The worst thing is that when you're attending a leadership program is that, and I'll tell you how disconnected people are to the content, is when they look at a leadership program and say like, I wish my boss was here. I wish that lady in the next cubicle, she should have been here. Oh man, that guy in that department, that manager, he should be attending this thing and all that. All right, great. So what is happening is that we are looking at a content and we are thinking about like, how is this good for him? How is this good for this? How is this good for my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and all that? Nobody is asking how is this good for me.
Me.
But the moment people go through a simulation, then they get stuck in the simulation. It's like, oh, but why not? Why not? Why can't I do this? No, you can't. The rule of the game says you can't. So how am I going to come out of it? I don't know. You figure it out. And now you're stuck in it. Now you're stuck, and you're starting to look inward as to like, hey, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I should be able to do this, but what's missing? Okay, now I will talk to you about leadership principles. Now you start identifying there are gaps inside me. So, this is what I mean by making people realize that there are stuff that they thought they know, but they actually don't know.
Oh no.
So simulation drops to that level of unconscious incompetence, make people realize that, hey, I do not know this. Yeah, you're right. I'm stuck. And I'm stuck like this even at work. Okay, so now instead of looking at the content, whether it's good for my wife or good for my children or what, I'm looking at it, okay, what is it for me? So
Me.
this is where simulation actually plays a very, very powerful role in learning.
Wow, very nice, very nicely put with that example. So do you experience participants going through that when they are immersed into that simulation activity or the learning? Do you see them coming up with those aha moments to say, oh wow, I didn't realize I was going to undergo this? Or
Oh yeah, yeah. The aha moment comes a bit later. First is This the OF moment, you know.
Okay.
When they look at it like and you know, like sometimes okay, I give a few examples. I think I like to share what happens in classrooms.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so this guy had a solution. This is one simulation that we play. We call it water pond. So it's based on a existing simulation out there. So we modified some of the elements of it to localize it here. So the idea is to take your horses to the pond to drink the water. Now he made a calculation like as to like how everybody could actually benefit from it and started to go around selling the idea. Guys, let's do this. And he is explaining at a very intellectual level. And people looked at him like, I don't trust you. I think you're trying to cheat us. And no, go. And you could see the frustration in that person's face. You know, it's like, you know what? I am explaining in the most intelligent way. And what's wrong with you, fool? You don't even understand this, and they're getting very frustrated. Now, that's the frustration that we want to create in a safe space.
Okay.
So when you start having the frustration, then you realize that intellectually trying to explain some things don't work in some culture. So your intellectual ability to actually tell something, convince someone is not going to happen at intellectual level. On the other hand, you'll find another person and say like, hey, come on, don't hey, you just come, you just follow. Okay, I tell you what, I tell you what. You help me, I'll help you the
Right.
next round. Okay? You take my word. If the next round I don't help you, then the third round onwards, we all out fight. We don't have to work together. And the person actually bought into the idea and it worked out. So
Right.
now you start realizing that, hey, relationship is more important than the processes or the
The
intellectual
intellectual part of it,
intellectual part of it. But try explaining that theoretically in a classroom.
especially at the senior level, very difficult.
Oh, no, it's not going to happen. I love it when I put senior people through that. Is that actually senior groups are very interesting because they are a bit more mature. So they can, certain simulation, they can figure out quite well. Okay,
Hmm.
compared to a junior level, they do figure out quite well. But
Hmm.
the conversations that they have after that is where it's really a wealth of knowledge. Right? Basically, sometimes I don't even have to do a debrief. I'm asking questions. So why do you say that? Okay, how does that happen? Where is this useful? You know, I'm just asking this kind of coaching questions, not even going into deep dive, debrief questions. I'm just asking some very surface level questions, but the level of stuff that they bring about, it's so I mean you see the learning is so rich. The word is actually that very rich level of learning that actually happens out of conversations.
Nice, nice, very interesting, very interesting. Um, we spoke about how it benefits the participants. Just to very quickly touch base, and before I go to the next question from the audience, again, if any question, just bring it on, or any comment or anything, just bring it on. We'll be more than happy, more than glad. It's a very interesting insights from Jega. Um, Benefit to the participants. How is simulation and game-based learning benefiting the organizations? Now, I have seen a lot of organization. I'm sure I have only seen it from the periphery, but as Accordia training provider, as an organization which runs it day in and day out, I'm seeing a lot of organizations coming and saying we want this as part of the kind of the training program. Why is this? There is a shift you can experience. Any particular reason? How does it benefit to the organizations?
Okay, I think it's because it goes straight to the topic. It doesn't beat around the bush. It doesn't go around the theoretical aspect of it, and people want to have practical solutions. And I think today what people really want is that they want to have meaningful conversations. Okay, what people really want is actually something called meaningful conversations around a particular topic. Today, we don't get calls on a basis of a topic. Like very hardly people call and say that, do you do a customer service program? Once upon a time, it used to be like that. Today, the
Hmm.
calls are very much like, hey, I have this particular situation. This is what's happening. Do you have a game or simulation that can address it? That is how the conversations are happening today. And it because at the senior level, it makes people have meaningful conversation. At a junior level, it makes things so simple that people know what to do on Monday morning. That is the most
Okay.
important thing. So I'll give you one example. Right now, it's in the pipeline. I think it's in June, 12th of June. I'm running a session on this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is going to be for factory workers,
Okay.
factory employees of a manufacturing company, and they said that we want them to understand the importance of doing things properly according to SDG. So I asked why, for those SDG stands for the Sustainability Development Goals from the United Nations. I believe there's 17 goals of SDG. So they want them to be aware about what are the things that they do at their level, and that can affect the environment, affect the company's reputation and all. So I was talking to them. I said, why do you talk about SDG? SDG is very high level, and in a country, yes, but a lot of things of SDG will not work out for you. I said, what about, are you all into ESG? Yeah, we are very much into ESG. So then I said, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we make the layman down there understand what you guys are trying to do up there in terms of ESG? So what did was we designed a simulation based on the theory of tragedy of the commons. Once again, guys, Google what tragedy of the commons are. It will save time because we only have a few minutes left. Okay,
Yes.
so we build it around it, whereby it's a farmland. They need to graze the grass of the farmland, grow not poultry, sorry, their cow farm. But at the same time, there is waste, and you have a choice of actually letting go the waste into the river, or you have a choice of actually treating the waste well. So imagine I'm going to put factory workers through this whole experience,
Yeah.
just to
Experience.
make them understand that
Right.
whenever you do anything in the organization, what goes around comes around. So if you
Wow.
decided to let go some of the effluent material into the drain, which is going to end up in the river, it's going to come back and it's going to hit your organization, and it might also affect your job, and it will affect your children's health in future. This is the missing conversation in terms of ESG. This is my opinion about ESG. I have friends who are doing ESG thing, but they are doing at a very high level. In fact, I can't even speak to them in English because they speak in a very foreign language called ESG. I can't understand it, right? And everything is about reporting, reporting, reporting. But what does it mean on a Monday
Basic.
morning?
Correct.
Right? On a Monday morning, what does it mean? So if you do that, what happens is that people are going through that experience, and then now you relate whatever happened in this game to your factory. What should you do next? So the feel that they have over here is very deep in them, that it can has a higher percentage or chances of them to modify their behavior when they go back to their plant.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Very nicely put. I have three questions and I have a rapid fire round. And we'll try to wrap up in 10 minutes on time. But if
Okay.
case not, we will spill over by a couple of minutes more. But these 3 to 4 questions are quite interesting and intriguing as well. We touched base upon, and I want to quickly touch base upon that. What is MASAGA? It is you've mentioned you're a founding member of that. Can you tell us the full form of it? What is that you're building? What is the essence of it? What is the intention? What's the core of it?
Okay.
Something about Masaga.
Right. So what happened is in 2015, Zyrol and I, my partner, Zyrol, who is a partner of Accordia, we are the founding members, a founding partner for 17 years. We have been running Accordia. So we take pride in that as well. So Zyrol and I in 2015 went to the NASAGA conference in Seattle. And when we
Mhm.
saw over there, we really loved it. What happened was it's a community. community of people coming and sharing ideas and all that. And I thought that, like, hey, we should be doing this here. So Zainul said, like, yeah, why don't, we try it over here. So when we came back, we attempted to do certain things, trying to get people to come together and all. But it didn't really work out very well. So what we did was we said, let's do a conference. So MASAGA started off as a conference, which is the Malaysian Simulation and Gaming Conference. The first conference was in 2018. Then we
Okay.
did in 2019. And then after that, the world turned around. So we stopped for a while. And last year, we did our third conference. And right now, we have already created a WhatsApp group for that. And we are starting to see the community coming together. So the idea of MASAGA is we said we will head towards an association, but before that, let's get the practitioners doing stuff first. The most important thing is not position, but the practice itself. So Masaga is currently a community of practitioners who come together. We share ideas. So somebody who is a little bit more advanced, or some, or maybe not advanced, they have an idea, they can share, and others could look at it and you know what, I can take this and I can modify a bit. I can use it in my game. I'm trying to address a different topic and all. So we are attempting to create a community where people can actually share ideas over there. So that is what Masaga is right now. And once we hit a critical mass of it, and we can start moving into an association thing. But currently, Masaga is still a community. The Masaga conference is organized by Accordia Training. So it's still privately run, simply because it will never, just to get things off and move things faster. So that's what Masaga is.
So there are people out here. Thanks for that, Jega. There are people out here in the audience who definitely are aspiring to be in the simulation game-based learning kind of space. Now, if they want to be part of this Masaga community, how do they reach out to? Whom do they reach out to? Do they just write to you on LinkedIn? Or I just want to be open to the audience here to say, what do they do?
Correct. Step one, connect with me on LinkedIn. Step
Okay.
two, send me a message that I would like to know more about Masaga, and we'll start having a conversation there. Because we just want to know who is coming into the group right now. Because there are people who, once they see a community, they want to come in to promote products and all that. That's not the intention of it. We want it to be a community where practitioners are coming in to share. Even if you say that I do not know anything about it, I'm not an expert, but I want to know how to use games in my classroom. I'm a teacher. I want to do this in my classroom. I'm a kindergarten teacher, or I'm in a tertiary. I want to get my students to understand global politics, or can I have a simulation? I want to learn the principles of it. Hey, you know what? We want you in. We want these people. We want people who have interest in taking this further. It doesn't matter whether you're an expert or not an expert. That doesn't really matter. So just drop me a message on LinkedIn, and we'll take it from there.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much for that, Jega. Couple of more questions, and then we're going to go to the rapid fire round. Uh, we've heard numerous benefits of it. I mean, I'm sold definitely with the idea of simulation, game-based learning. I think a lot of organizations are asking for it. There is a huge demand for it, and people want to undergo that experience because people feel motivated. They feel more engaged during a kind of a learning experience, whether it's a day, a day's program or a day two program. What are the pitfalls around it which we need to be aware of? Is there I'm sure everything has a pros and a cons to it. Is there
Yeah.
anything to this which we should be aware of?
Okay. To make it very simple, there are others, but I'll take it because this is a layman's guide, right? So I'll take
Yes,
it
yes,
layman.
yes.
Test your game before you take it to an audience. I have paid a very big price in my life. So don't do the mistakes that we used to do in the past. Any game, test it out. Test it out with your children, test it out with your spouse, your wife, test it out because you'll find loopholes in it. So whatever game, test it before you roll it out. That's a very, very important thing because you really don't know how things, you might design it very well. You might think,
Hmm.
I'm going to do this. This is how their response is going to be. Oh, participants are going to get excited over here. And then when you play, it's like everybody's like, oh, what, nothing, nothing to be excited. But, and that will really, it will be a big blow. So always test the game That is a very big thing that I would say for anyone.
Okay, very nice. That's a very valid point. Don't go out there and you think you've got a lot of learnings, and people come in the training program and they're like, I didn't learn anything from this. What were you even trying to, for heaven's sake? Okay. Nice, nice. Um, Last question on this particular topic. For people to undergo this enriching experience, you have audience and you have participants which come from various aspects, various background, various industries, everything different. Is there a particular mindset they should possess or adapt for them to gain the maximum from a simulation or a game based learning exercise?
You're referring to the person who's running it or the participants who are coming?
Participants, is there a particular mindset a participant should possess to kind of gain the most out of it? I mean,
Oh,
if
no.
there is a more value addition for a trainer to have the mindset, you can add that also. I didn't
Right.
think of it that
I think as far as participant is concerned, participants can come in any mindset, so it's very difficult for us to control them. The only thing is that the participant must engage in it. So once again, this brings the onus comes onto the trainer or the facilitator who is running the thing. Is that you need to design an activity that is really engaging, so people would really want to come and play. So when it comes to engaging and all that, it must there's two things. Very important thing is that uh, you don't want to in designing a game. There's just two things that you have to really be very mindful of. Number one, do not put people through an embarrassing situation. So people should not go through an embarrassing situation to play your game. So for example, in the local culture in Malaysia, male female, especially if they are Muslims, they do not hold hands. So if you are putting those kind of things, that puts them through a very difficult situation, or you ask them to do certain things, jump around and all that, but that's not their culture in it. So that is like embarrassing somebody you do not want to embarrass. Secondly, it goes back to that example. I think what I already shared is that don't cross cultural barriers. So there are cultural barriers, you never want to cross that thing. So that's the only two things that you have to be very cautious about whenever you're rolling out a game. But a part of that, the mindset of a trainer is that, or a facilitator is exactly as what this show is. You got to be having a curious mind.
right.
So curious mind is that when you go through an experience, you give them a game and all that, you have to be curious as to like, hey, why did you decide that? Instead of having a certain outcome, some people they can only debrief when participants fail in the game.
Correct.
When they fail in a game, and say, okay, you know why that happened? That is okay. That probably that's one way, but even then, you would not go and tell them, why you failed. You'll never put it on their face. You'll always ask, like, what happened? Do you feel were you happy with the result? Okay, or what could have been done differently? So that is fine. But how do you debrief when they succeed in the game? That
Mm.
is where it becomes another challenge for trainers. Is that a good trainer should be able to debrief whether somebody succeeded or failed in a game. So if somebody is running a game and they can only bring out a lesson when people fail in a game, then you're just halfway there. So you got to master both skills.
Nice, very nice, well put. Thanks, Jega. The questions around simulation and game-based learning are done. We are pretty much on the clock, on the dot right now. And I, to be honest, didn't even realize that it's almost an hour. It was so much enriching of an experience. Um, in our section of the Curious Mind series podcast, we also cover something called as a rapid fire round. Now, a rapid fire round is something where I'll ask you just 5 questions, and you have to be yourself and answer them, obviously. But it is also knowing about you as a person a little more, to your friends, to your network, to your community, which probably they would not know about. Now, I'm sure I'm not going to ask you questions which put you kind of in a learner's mindset in an embarrassing situation. I'm not going to do that, but it will be very simple questions. So be yourself, take it easy.
All right.
The harder part of answering the questions has happened. This is the fun part of it. Are you ready for it, Jega?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Speaking about games, what is your favorite board game?
My favorite board game. Wow. Okay. Oh man. Okay. I would say my favorite board game has been Axis and Allies, which is another version of Risk.
Which is another version of Risk. Okay, okay. Thank you for saying that because I didn't knew the first part of it. The moment you said it's another version of Risk, I'm like, okay, I can relate to it. I can relate to it. I can relate to this particular board game. You took a long time to arrive at the answer.
Yeah, yeah. That's not so rapid, right? Sorry about that.
And that is the fun of the rapid fire round. I'm going to catch you with something
Okay.
not
So
which
this is actually a proof that you never gave me any of the questions, right?
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, the entire essence of the Curious Mind series is you don't know what's coming your way, and that's the fun part of it. Okay. Second one. What does Jega do? Indulge into having fun when not conducting a game-based learning. So, what do you do for your own fun? Do you play a sport, watch a movie, anything? What do you do to rejuvenate yourself?
Uh, I listen to, I either watch YouTube or listen to a podcast.
Okay. Now that
Yeah.
I do a podcast, I'm very keen to know, and this is question was not linked, but which is your top person or top podcast you listen to?
Okay, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and all those people that you don't want to talk about. But
Okay,
I
I
also
get.
listen to Dave Ramsey. A lot of times actually goes into learning about investing. So I am currently, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing is learning about investment. I'm already 49. So I got to think of retirement as well. That's why.
Now the audience knows your age also,
Oh
which
yeah.
is okay. Fantastic. A year to a half century. Now goes to the next question. Favorite non-Malaysian cuisine and why?
Non-Malaysian cuisine. Favorite non-Malaysian cuisine, burrito.
Okay.
Yeah. Why? Because I don't know. I kind of like when it's really big and it's nice and it's so juicy and all that. Oh man! Now I feel like going and having it for the.
Well, it's a Friday night.
Yeah.
Go give it a shot. Okay, next question, number 4. One thing you're a Malaysian, you've stayed here. I have whenever I've spoken to you, yeah, you are very patriotic. I have seen that in your whenever you speak about it. What is that one thing you love about Malaysia?
It's the most safest country out there. I can walk on the street. I don't have to be worried about somebody mugging me. I can wear what I want to wear and go. As long as the place is not dark and all that, I'm feeling very, very safe. I can go anywhere, middle of the night. I don't think I can say that about many other developed countries out there.
I agree. Couldn't agree more. I totally agree with it. And the last question: what is your alter ego, if there is one, or what you would have been if you were not in this profession? I know you've been running an Accordia for the last 17, 18 years now. So,
I would be in on. I will be a police officer, special branch on on commercial crime division.
wow, that's very specific and
Very
very clear.
specific. Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you the next question after this.
You said alter ego, right? That's the alter ego.
The alter ego. Wow, fantastic, fantastic. Wow, with that, I must admit that I've had a immersive experience and understanding about simulation and game based learning. I'm sure all of you in the audience as well would have benefited definitely from Jega's insight on this interesting topic. I had a question in between, Jega, about asking for examples, but the manner in which you gave such a lot of examples, I didn't even, there was not even a need to ask you that question. So I'm sure a lot of people have benefited from the real life examples which you gave. Um, to the audience, please do like, comment, share if you've enjoyed this episode with Jega or not enjoyed. Even if you've not enjoyed, if there is any constructive feedback you want to give us, both me and Jega are very much willing to take any kind of feedback at this point in time. And don't forget to follow the Curious Mind series as we continue to bring many more interesting topics with interesting guest speakers like Jega over the coming weeks. We are also now on YouTube Live. I'm going to launch that very soon with the brand of Curious Mind series. So you can view the episode again. We've taken a feedback from some of you who said, Vikram, I have to go to the LinkedIn profile, I have to check it, and I have to see the video there. So we are launching on YouTube. In fact, this very much episode is also live on YouTube at this point in time. So before we wrap up, a heartfelt thanks, Jega, for willing to be on our show today and adding value to the audience with your deep insights on this interesting topic. Keep shining and wishing you the very best in all your endeavors you do. Any last parting comments from your side?
So first of all, thank you very much, Vikram, for this session. I really had a good time talking to you about this. I mean, I always have a good time talking to you about anything of this as well. But I thank you so much for this, and I really encourage everyone to explore this field, make your classroom interesting, and anybody can design game. Just if there's one last word I want to tell you all is that anybody can design game. It's not a select few that can do it. Anybody can do it. And if I can do it, you can do it too.
Wow. And just before we were about to pass the end of the live show, nothing better
Sharma.
coming from Sharma, whom both of us know. Excellent, both of you. Hey, thank you, Sharma. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Uh,
Sharma.
Thank you. It means a lot to both of us. And she is also saying, already checking out Axis and Allies.
I have a box. If anyone wants to play, let's have a session. We could play that.
Very nice. The next time we all get together, I think probably we should do that. Okay, we are not going to take much of the time of the audience. We are already 8 minutes ahead of the hour. Good night, everyone. We thank you again. Thanks, Jega. Thank you for joining us on a lovely Friday evening and wishing you all an awesome weekend ahead. Signing off from me and Jega. Bye for now. Thank you so much.